And there's another new PS5 update. Sony's got a surprise showcase coming up. Did Sony steal features from this Pro controller for the DualSense Edge? And also down in the description, I have a ton of links to controllers, SSDs, TVs, monitors, headsets, any accessory you need for your PS5. I have a link for it down in the description. So if you want to help me out, use those links. How's it going, everyone? And welcome to PSReady. This is probably going to be the last video where I get to talk about God of War Ragnarok. I am right at the edge of getting the platinum. I need like 2 more trophies and they're super easy to get. I was trying not to use a guide, but one of them is finding like 9 flowers and I have 8, so I'm going to use a guide to find the last one. But since this is probably one of the last times for a little bit I'll talk about the game, I figured I'd show you my Mjolnir hammer. I immediately went and bought the collector's edition for this game as soon as I beat it, and finally, for once, Sony actually had it available after the game came out. I don't like buying collector's editions for games before I actually play them. I always want the collector's edition after I beat the game. So yeah, with the LE edition of The Last of Us Part 2, I was never able to get that, but I was able to get the Jotnar edition of God of War Ragnarok. It came with a bunch of cool stuff, but this is the coolest thing. It also came with this little Freya statue, little carved thing, and then also a Freyr little carved statue. So yeah, God of War Ragnarok, it's my game of the year. And now that I'm basically done with it, I can jump into December's PS Plus games, which are actually really good. It feels like Sony has been listening to all of our criticism over the past few weeks about how bad or at least lackluster the PS Plus offerings have been. So starting on December 6th, the first game that's being added to your collection if you have a PS Plus Essential membership is the Mass Effect Legendary Collection. That's just like an awesome inclusion across the board. I bought this game when it came out because the only Mass Effect I had played at the time was Mass Effect 2. I really enjoyed that game, but I felt like I was missing some of the story. I played through Mass Effect 1 for the first time and it was a really cool experience, and Mass Effect 2 is even better, obviously. Mass Effect 3 kind of faltered a little bit, but it was still really good, and regardless, getting these 3 games in their remastered form completely for free, that is the stuff I like to see from Sony. We just need more months like this that have big headliners instead of like every few months, because, you know, we're paying for it. We should get good games every month. The second game you're getting on PS5 is Biomutant. This is an open world game that was announced a long time before it came out. It got decent reviews when it launched, and I noticed that they actually patched a lot of the criticisms people had. So if you're looking for a fun open world game where you get to basically be Rocket Raccoon, I guess, this seems like a pretty solid game to check out. And the last game you're getting is Divine Knockout. Guys, you're gonna have to let me know if this one's good down in the comments because I have never heard of it. Regardless though, this is a really good month for PlayStation Plus, mainly because you're technically getting 5 games. Yeah, you're getting Mass Effect 1, 2, and 3, and then these 2 other games. And Biomutant, I've heard, is pretty decent. So yeah, let's get more months like this, Sony, because this is a really solid month of PlayStation Plus games. Next up, we got to talk about this new Pro controller for the PlayStation 5 that's coming out just in time to release before the DualSense Edge, which honestly, if it has any hope of being successful, I think that was a necessary piece of the puzzle. So good on Victrix Pro BFG controller, which is made by PDP. So good on PDP for figuring out how to release this controller on time. Now, I actually talked about this back in October when it was announced, but I've seen a lot of stores being sold out of it and people really seem to want to get their hands on it. So I figured I'd tell you guys about it again. So this controller is $180, and the reason that you're going to want to pick it up is because it takes one of the best features of the DualSense Edge, which is the fact that you can remove the stick module and it kind of expands on it in a really cool way. So actually, like, there's multiple modules that kind of connect together. They come in like little 2 pieces. So if you're the kind of person who likes having offset sticks like on the Xbox Series X or Xbox One or Xbox 360, you can actually flip the little module that has the D-pad and the stick. And if you want to go back to having it just like a regular old PlayStation controller, you can just flip it right back. And it looks like these modules are pretty cool and they're magnetic. Now on the right side of the controller, it gets even cooler because you can replace the right stick and the face buttons with an actual like fighting pad layout. So if you're someone like me who just suddenly became addicted to Injustice 2, which was recently offered on PlayStation Plus, or you're someone who likes Mortal Kombat, you're getting excited for Street Fighter 6, this seems like a great module to use for games like that. And the cool thing is, a lot of this stuff comes included in the box. I'm sure they're going to sell some attachments attachment modules as an extra like add-on down the line, but as of like right now, when you go get the controller, what comes in the box is the module that has the D-pad and the stick for the left side, so you can flip that around and have it be an Xbox layout or a PlayStation layout. And then you also get the one that has the stick and the face buttons for the right side, obviously, or you get the one that has the face buttons and the R1 and R2 for the fight pad. You also get the Xbox Elite controller style D-pad. You also get the normal cross D-pad. You get taller sticks, you get shorter sticks. It's a pretty good inclusion, and it does come with a carrying case. And I think it's pretty cool that it's black and purple. Like if you're one of the weirdos like me who really likes Hawkeye a lot, like if you look at the Avengers lineup and then you just pick Hawkeye, this is like a pretty cool Hawkeye style controller. The one weird thing that's missing from this controller is rumble, and you're also losing out on the adaptive triggers, but God of War Ragnarok is the biggest game for the PS5 of 2022, just in general, and that game had about 3 moments in the entire story where the adaptive triggers even were used, like when you're just chopping wood or ice at certain points of the game, and it's really inconsistent because there are points where you're chopping stuff in a story sequence with the axe and the adaptive triggers don't even kick in. So, you know, we're getting pretty deep into the PS5's life cycle. I would expect to see adaptive triggers be a feature less and less and less as time goes on. So yeah, if you want to pick up a Pro controller for around the same price, right? Like the DualSense Edge is $200, this one's $180. We're talking 20 bucks there. Like you're going to spend around $200 either way. This could be a good option for you because it seems pretty premium, and everyone I've talked to about it seems to like it, like my friend Brett over at Destructoid. So lately, when it comes to updating the PS5, Sony has been going more like Microsoft in terms of like how they're updating. So when you look at the Xbox Series X, they love to piecemeal features out as time goes on and they finish them. Whereas traditionally with the PS5, Sony, on the other hand, has been putting out massive updates every few months, really around 2 or 3 times a year. But we just got a new update for the PlayStation 5 that fixes my biggest complaint with the console. I think I just did a video of like surprise 2022 updates that could happen where I said, yes, I hate that explore page so much because I paid $500 for the PlayStation 5. I'm buying a ton of games for it. The fact that every time I turn this thing on, the first thing it wants to do is advertise a game to me, let alone a game I don't even play, which is Fortnite, is super frustrating. And then they just like redesigned it in the back end. So now when you turn on your PlayStation 5, the new Explore tab features your friends, it features your trophies. You've still got a couple little ads there for sure, but overall it is a big improvement. And now we're getting back a feature that was on the PlayStation 4 that people have actually been asking for a lot, which is tournaments. So Sony has actually built in a bracket tournament system where you can easily jump into esports style tournaments in any game that supports this feature. So this feature just launched, but if you use it between the 1st of December and the 31st of January, so basically 2 full months, and compete in a win-a-thon, they're actually giving away some pretty cool stuff like cash prizes, a PlayStation 5, a DualSense Edge, you know, like actual good prizes. Now there's no word really on how many of these are being given away, but if you're really good at a supported game, I think it'd be pretty cool to at least jump in and try it, because if you're playing the games anyway, like why not try to win some prizes in the process? I'm sure there's some smaller prizes as well, like maybe PlayStation Stars 3D render of PlayStation All-Stars Battle Royale on the PlayStation 3. I mean, you never know, right? They could also be giving away like PS Plus free months or something like that. I don't know. This just seems like a cool thing, and the supported games are pretty popular. Right now, you can do FIFA 23, you can do NBA 2K23, and they've got Guilty Gear, which is a fighting game that looks very technical and extremely challenging. So if you're playing that game, chances are you're probably pretty good at it. And honestly, the interface looks pretty cool. It's just your typical bracket style system, but also it's got that PlayStation flavoring in its art style. I would have loved to have something like this back when I had infinite time on my hands and I was playing Mortal Kombat 9 all the time, or like the first Injustice. Like I was addicted to those games in high school. And also I went to a tournament at a GameStop to try out Street Fighter versus Tekken, and I got my ass whooped. And it could have been my redemption arc, right? Like it could have had a Rocky style montage where I bought the game and I took it home and I played it every day, and then I played these PlayStation tournaments and I worked my way up through the brackets, and then I finally took home the cash prize of a PlayStation Stars 3D render of PlayStation All-Stars Battle Royale, the ultimate prize that everyone wants to get. I might be dating myself by talking about that game, but basically it was like Smash Bros made by PlayStation. But yeah, the PlayStation Tournaments feature is available now. I would wait to start it until December 1st, obviously, because that's when you can actually win the prizes. And if you're good at FIFA or 2K or Guilty Gear, you may as well jump in. So over the past couple months, I've been keeping track of this PlayStation 5 hack that allows you to install custom firmware on it, and at first it didn't really seem like you were able to like install pirated games or emulate games on the console, but as time has gone on, things have gotten really easy, because even then, a couple months ago, it was like a 30% success rate on whether or not this would work on your PlayStation 5. And now the software that allows you to install custom firmware on your PS5 has been updated to have a graphical user interface, or a GUI or GUI. I don't really know how to say it, but basically up until now, you haven't been able to really see what was going on with this app that you use to put custom firmware on your PlayStation 5. And honestly, it's giving me deja vu. One of the cooler updates that's coming to PS5-PS4 tools, it's the 1.0.3 update, is the ability to control the fan speed of your console. Now, honestly, Sony really took the criticism of the PlayStation 4 to heart. It was a very loud machine. It would sound like an aircraft carrier, even if after you cleaned it out. When you're playing some of those later games like The Last of Us Part 2, or even now God of War Ragnarok and Horizon Forbidden West, even with a brand new, completely airtight and clean fan, you're going to hear that thing taking flight underneath your TV. So I could see this PS4 tool hack really working well with that console, but on the PlayStation 5, I never hear the fan spin up in that thing, and I've been playing some pretty demanding games on it, like Demon's Souls, Returnal. Deathloop, for some reason, despite the fact that it doesn't really look that good, it ran pretty damn bad at launch and would make the PS5 fans spin up just a little bit, but that's honestly the loudest I've ever heard it get, other than something like Miles Morales playing on quality mode could also make that fan rev up. So I don't really see the utility here in using PS4-PS5 tools for changing the fan speed of your PlayStation 5, but if you really want to fry your PS4, now you have the option to do so. Personally, I still wouldn't recommend hacking your PlayStation 5 just because it causes a lot of issues. Like if for some reason it connects to the internet with hacked firmware and Sony is able to tell that your console is hacked, which I'm sure Sony of all companies would be able to figure that out since they've had so many issues over the years with being hacked, your PlayStation Network account is getting banned forever. Now, during the PS3 days, that was kind of not that big of a deal because you could just make a new PlayStation account, but now every game is launched digitally. We have PlayStation Plus, we're getting free games every month. Losing your PlayStation Network account would honestly be pretty detrimental at this point, right? Like, especially if you've been stacking the PlayStation Plus games over every month that you've had this available, like since the PS4. I was going to say you could potentially lose access to hundreds of games, but if you've been keeping up with it, you'll guaranteed lose access to maybe even thousands of games if you lose your PlayStation Network account. And that's just all completely gone. There's no way they'll ever unban you for doing something like that. Considering also the fact that there's a digital edition PS5, there's a lot of people out there who are only buying their games digitally. So yeah, if you're one of those people, I definitely wouldn't try hacking your console. It's definitely not worth it at this point. And then the final reason I wouldn't do it is because so many games require online now and patches that it's probably not worth playing the launch edition of a game that you can torrent or whatever, however you get access to these PlayStation 5 games. I just don't think it's largely going to be worth it. And the last news story I have for you guys today is that Sony is officially going to be at CES 2023. Now, normally I wouldn't care about this because Sony as a whole makes a lot more stuff than PlayStation's. They have cameras, they have lenses, they have TVs, they have Blu-ray players, they're working on a car with Honda. But last year they showed off the PSVR 2 during this show, and I was actually out to dinner when it happened, so I will never be ignoring this show again. This year, what I would personally expect to see, just knowing that it comes out around the same time, is more info on the DualSense Edge, and also just because this is happening like right before the PSVR 2 launches, I would expect to see more announcements related to that. But it could also be the event where we see this brand new PlayStation 5 that's allegedly coming in 2023. Now, if you haven't heard about that yet, in other videos I've done, basically the way the PS5 Slim is going to shake out is that Sony is trying to streamline the way that they're making the console. So right now they're making two different consoles, right? Like they're making the disc edition and they're making the discless edition, and there's way less of those disc drive-less editions out there because they're selling them for $100 less, but it definitely doesn't cost $100 less to make that console. So Sony's been sitting there like, how do we streamline this? And that's actually something they've been doing over the past couple years by reducing the size of the heatsink, reducing the size of the motherboard. Like the PS5 you go and buy at the store now versus the PS5 you got at launch, the motherboard is literally 50% of the size and it runs about 20% cooler than the other console did before. So basically what they're going to do is take that improved motherboard and just put it inside a diskless model of the PlayStation 5. And the difference is there's going to be an extra USB-C port that's totally completely reserved for an external disk drive. So when you go to the store in 2023, if and when this console is announced, you'll be able to buy still the digital and disc edition of the PS5. But if you get that digital edition, you'll be able to buy an external disk drive down the line, clamp it onto the side of the console, and you'll have a new side plate to go on as well. Or if you buy the disc edition, it's just going to be that digital edition, but it's going to have the disk drive already attached, have the right faceplate. And the coolest thing about this is it's allegedly not going to be visually different in pretty much any way from the current PS5. You are going to have a hole in the side of the console for that cord to come out and reach around the back and plug into the back of the device, but hopefully with the design chops Sony has, they make it flush so you don't see it. And other than that, it's going to be largely the same machine. And I would expect that's when we're probably going to start seeing special edition consoles. We of course can get special edition plates right now, like the gray camo one, the black, the purple, the pink, the blue, all those other colors, the red, and they match up with the DualSense as well. But once they've streamlined the design of the console and made it so they're only producing one console and adding a disc drive onto it separately, which I'm sure they're going to sell for at least $50 or $75, that will make it easier for them to finally start producing special edition plates to go along with stuff like the Ragnarok Edition DualSense. So yeah, in terms of games, I wouldn't expect to see anything crazy there or really anything at all. I would expect whatever hardware they show off to either be this PS5 Slim or it's going to be related to the PSVR 2 and of course the DualSense Edge.